Hey, if you subscribe to the podcast, you probably noticed that Tuesday's episode cut out a little early when Mark and I are talking about the Mario costumes. Those minutes have been restored to the feed if you want to go check that out, but I'm also going to tack them onto the end of this episode. But without further ado, here is our ranking of the Kongs. Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, love him or hate him, we're putting Funky Kong into our rankings somewhere. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. How's it going, Mark?
Feeling pretty good.
Me too. Feeling the length of the day at this point.
Yeah.
You ever get there where you're like, going long?
Yes.
Day's going long.
And you've had a busy day.
I have had a busy day. I should shut up about it, though. I feel like I've brought it up too many times now. I'm no longer sympathetic to my own long day. But this is fun. We are going to be ranking all of the Kongs. Mark, what does that mean? We don't know. We got to figure it out on mic. There are some question marks here. What is a Kong? What isn't a Kong? Which Kongs are different from other Kongs? It'll be a whole thing. But in the meantime, if you would rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, that would be lovely. We would like to get up to 50 reviews on Apple Podcasts so we can maybe go to E3. Only you can help us. I suppose I could also help us. I haven't reviewed us yet. I will. I'm going to do it. You're going to do it, listener. We'll do it together. It'll be great. Also, if you would like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces on the Nintendo Switch, you can do that or try to do it if we ever get my copy back. We think we probably will. You can write in with your physical mailing address to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And while you're at it, sending emails all willy-nilly, you can give us your list of Game Boy Classic games. Mark, what do I mean?
Okay. So, in the past, we've done theoretical N64 Classic editions.
That's right.
So, right now, what we're going to do,
and
by right now, I mean
April
on
19th.
April 19th.
That's right.
We are going to create a definitive Game Boy Classic edition.
That's right.
So this will include Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games. Game Boy Advance is a totally different thing.
Right? So don't even try it.
Don't even try.
If I see one Advance Wars or Golden Sun on this thing, I'm out the door.
So you can send us a list of up to 15 games that you think should be included on a Game Boy Classic edition. You can send 1. You can send 2. You can send 3 through 15.
That's right. If you think that a Game Boy Classic Edition should just have Batman the Game for Game Boy, I mean, that's a choice.
Or if you just think that Batman the Game has to be on there and everything else you don't care about.
Right. Fill in the blanks.
As long as Batman the Game is on there. Because we're going to be using your suggestions when we make our own definitive Game Boy Classic Edition.
And I gotta say, I'm not going to put Batman the Game on mine.
Not on my list.
Not on my list. All right, wonderful. Mark, let's get into this topic and figure out what we're doing in ranking the Kongs. Now, some also may ask why we would do this. Why rank the Kongs? It's like ranking the Koopa Kids in some way, right?
Right, but we already did that.
Yes. But I feel like we both like the Donkey Kong universe, right?
Yes.
We like at least the first Donkey Kong Country game. We griped about the second one, although I have fonder memories of it the further we get away from it. And Tropical Freeze is a super fun game, and even Donkey Kong Country Returns are solid games. So we like Donkey Kong. I also have a soft spot in my heart for the original Donkey Kong arcade machines, 1, Junior, and even 3. Love that Stanley the Exterminator. I want to see him in Smash. But so we've got some Kongs here to rank. And this is one of those rankings where neither Mark or I are coming to the table with a complete list, but we need to arrive at our full list together, and then that'll be definitive. We'll know who the best is. We'll know who the worst is.
Now, some of the question surrounding the whole thing, and part of the reason why neither of us have full rankings, is because who are we going to include on here? There's some question of heritage.
Yes. So it is canon that Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong.
Is it canon or is it hinted?
Okay, great question.
Like, are they just like teasing us with the information but never outright stating it?
I believe that it says in an instruction booklet for Donkey Kong Country that Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong, which is also, I mean, weirdly, we have to get information from like obscure little sources like this because they are not. There is no, to my satisfaction, Kong family tree. If you look up the Duck/McDuck family tree of like Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck, that is extensive. You can see how everyone is related. There are a lot of mystery women in the Duck family tree because Disney didn't really care, I guess, about that. But the Kongs, nothing but question marks.
Right. How people are related to each other doesn't always add up.
Right.
What makes you a Kong?
Yeah. Is it a title? Is it a family name? Do you even have to be the same species? I'm saying no. But here are some things that we know for sure. That Cranky Kong is at least one generation, possibly 2 generations older than the Donkey Kong that we know in Donkey Kong Country. We know, or we can assume, that Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong that you play against in Donkey Kong and that you rescue in Donkey Kong Jr. Donkey Kong Jr., I think we have to assume, is the son of Donkey Kong, right? And therefore the son of Cranky Kong.
Yes.
Okay. So there are conflicting reports in instruction booklets and like in-game text as to whether Cranky is Donkey Kong's father or grandfather. So the family tree that I would like to put forth is Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong. He had a son who is Donkey Kong Jr. Somehow there's another generation, and that is Donkey Kong. Be it Junior had a sister who had a kid, or Donkey Kong Jr. had a kid, and that is who we know as Donkey Kong in the Donkey Kong universe, Donkey Kong Country games. That's what I'm working from.
So for our purposes,
Yes.
Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. are 2 separate entities in the Country universe.
Right. And, so part of what Diddy Kong is when Rare was originally pitching the game to Nintendo, they paired up Donkey Kong with Donkey Kong Jr. And like that's basically just what they were calling Diddy Kong was Donkey Kong Jr. And Nintendo was like, no, we've already got a design for Donkey Kong Jr. We've seen him in his titular game, in the I guess eponymous game, but then also he's a character in Super Mario Kart. And is sort of like a background character in a lot of. I think he's in the Mario Tennis on the Virtual Boy, and is just sort of a background character that we see scattered about the place. So like Donkey Kong Jr. has his own identity. So we're going to put him to the side as separate from the Donkey Kong that we know in Donkey Kong Country, and separate from the Diddy Kong. That seem fair?
Yes.
Okay. And for the purpose,
So he won't be in our rankings.
he can be in our rankings, but he won't be like lumped in with the rest of those characters. Whereas I do think we should just call the Donkey Kong who appears in the original Donkey Kong game, we should just call him Cranky Kong.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. Other questions or points of concern?
When we're ranking Cranky Kong, are we considering his arcade life?
Yes, I think so. I think we have to.
Okay.
You,
Sure. I mean, that just like changes things, but I go with the flow. I'm like a river.
you are like a river, and that is one of the things I love most about you. All right. So beyond that,
Villain Kongs. We throwing those in there?
I think we have to acknowledge that there are villain Kongs.
Mm-hmm. Or right. So there is Manky Kong, who he's in Donkey Kong Country. He is a Kong who is throwing like barrels at you in the later levels.
Right.
Canonically, he's an orangutan who was like banned from the Kong family because of obnoxious and mischievous behavior. So they like joined K Rule.
They defected. They're
Mhm.
defectors. Do we even want to honor their treasonous ways by including them on this list?
I vote yes.
Okay. Very good. All right. So we will include the Mankey Kong. So I believe that leaves us with the following Kongs, and you can correct me where I'm wrong. Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, Kiddy Kong. These are the 4 protagonists from the Donkey Kong Country series of games. Donkey Kong Jr., Tiny Kong, Lanky Kong, and Chunky. So those are the 3 characters from Donkey Kong 64. Wrinkly Kong, Candy Kong, Swanky Kong, and Cranky Kong / the original Donkey Kong.
And Funky Kong.
And Funky Kong. Did I miss Funky?
He's not on this list.
Do we have a bad list of Kongs?
We might have a bad list of Kongs.
Okay. I'm going to look for a second list of Kongs. Tell me what your initial impressions are from the list that we have right here. Like, are there Kongs on here that you're immediately like, I don't have feelings about this Kong?
So because these are rare games, or most of these got their life in rare games, they all have very distinct, like personality, or they, what's the word I'm looking for? Like rare characters have a
look like rare characters.
They look like rare characters for good and for ill, and I feel like the negative side of that rears its head most prominently in the lady characters.
Yeah. Yes.
They're very unfortunate.
Well, and not at least the non-geriatric lady Kongs. So we're talking Dixie, we're talking Tiny, we're talking Candy. Now, for me, I can't deal with Candy Kong at all because she's a tall supermodel in like a bathing suit, right? I don't know what to do with Candy Kong.
She's at least funny to me.
Okay.
I at least find her like so awful that it's like hilarious.
It's like a Tex Avery cartoon.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
On the other side of this, I find Tiny just annoying.
Yeah, well, and Tiny also is a weird little redundant character because, like, why isn't that just Dixie in Donkey Kong 64? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And, like, especially with Donkey Kong Country 2 being such a, like, breakout success that people really like that game and they like playing as Diddy and they like playing as Dixie. Why is she not in that game? And I mean, so Dixie Kong is not one that, like, for me personally, I feel like I don't have a super close attachment to that character.
No.
But she does seem like she's like a core member of the Kong team, right? And it's one of those where you're like, why isn't she in Smash? Why isn't this character more? Why can't you play as Dixie Kong in a Mario Kart game? You can play as Donkey and Diddy, and sometimes Donkey Kong Jr. Why not Dixie? So even though I don't feel any like personal affection for her, I want to protect her. I don't know why this is.
So my problem with Tiny,
yes,
is that
big pants. Is it the
it's
big pants?
very like I shopped at Wet Seal in 1998.
Yes,
You know, like the attitude is all wrong. It's unbecoming.
Oh,
and she's kind of like, and this is the fault of Rare.
Yes,
She's like she's wearing like a weird like bikini top type thing.
is she wearing a bikini top like under overalls?
I don't think so. I think she's wearing pants
I gotta look up Tiny Kong.
and like a shirt with a bare midriff.
Oh yeah, that's what's going on. Well, that's what's going on sometimes. In Donkey Kong 64, she's wearing like a weird onesie kind of thing, a weird blue onesie with a daisy on it. Look, I think we can agree that Tiny is going to appear low on our list.
Yeah.
As is Candy. I don't like how many women are coming in real low on the list, but I guess they're women apes, so that's different. Who else do you feel like you don't really care about, or can we kind of lump into the bottom of the list here?
So I don't really care about Kiddy Kong.
Okay, and Kiddy Kong is the second playable character in Donkey Kong Country 3, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And people don't really love Donkey Kong Country 3. And again, I agree that his aesthetic is kind of gross. He's just wearing like a baby onesie.
He's just Big Baby.
He's just a big baby.
Mm-hmm.
But since I've never played Donkey Kong Country 3, I don't really find him that offensive. I'm just indifferent to him.
Would you say that represents the bottom for you? Those three.
Yeah.
Kitty, Tiny, Candy. We're going to have to, I think, go back and insert Mankey in here somewhere. But I don't really know or care where.
I like Mankey inherently from the fact that he was spurned and then became a turncoat, because that's at least interesting.
Mark, why aren't you loyal?
He at least is telling me a story.
Sure. There's an implied story that he was like too rude of a Kong, and they were like, you got to get out of here. And he was like, oh, I'm going to join up with these crocodile men.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that like villains are usually more interesting than heroes.
Sure. Why is there no dark Donkey Kong? Like just a straight up villain Donkey Kong. There should be.
There should be.
All right. So we are putting Kiddy Kong down here with the Tiny and Candy Kong. I also sort of want to put Lanky Kong in here. Did you play much of Donkey Kong 64?
I never beat it.
Yeah, I never beat it.
But I
either.
definitely remember playing as him.
Who's the other one in here? Kiddy Kong and the like other baby Kong, the giant baby. Why does Rare do this? That they invent
Are you talking about Chunky?
Yes, Chunky. He's like a child Kong, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So Chunky is weird because he's a little bit dressed like Aladdin.
Okay. Tell me why.
He has like that like purple like vest.
Is
thing.
he's wearing a hat,
And he's
right?
wearing a hat, but in some of the art it looks like a fez. Even though I think it's a backwards baseball cap.
Okay, so he's less baby and more just like a big weird dude.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will concede that they are different enough characters that I won't be mad about it.
Yeah, I don't think of Chunky as a baby.
Okay, and that's probably me just conflating those two characters. He is weird. He's got a nice belt, a big yellow belt buckle.
Uh-huh.
But he does sort of look like Aladdin. You're not wrong. I feel like we are discussing some real middle of the list characters right now, which maybe makes it hard for us to get super passionate about it. But let's fill out the sort of we've already done the C tier: Kiddy Kong, Tiny Kong, Candy Kong.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll posit that Tiny Kong is my absolute least favorite.
Okay.
And she goes below Candy Kong because even though Candy Kong is more like offensive in a lot of ways because she's just a Kong in a bathing suit.
It's a Kong that they want you to like get horny about.
But see, I think it's to a hysterical
that's
degree.
funny. Okay.
Whereas I think Tiny is that same thing, but without the like overtness.
Sure, that it is perhaps a sincere effort, which is more troubling.
Yes.
Okay. I can agree with that. Tiny at the bottom, then Candy, then Kitty.
Yeah. And Kitty's just kind of like an indifferent vote.
Sure. Also, I don't need to play as a baby.
No. Never.
Get that out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat those words when we get to Donkey Kong Jr., who I think is supposed to be a baby for most of the time you're playing him, right? He's wearing a bib.
Yeah, so I guess so.
I guess maybe he is a baby. I'm still going to push for him to be a little bit further up the list. Let's talk middle of the pack Kongs here. I think we're talking lanky, we're talking chunky. Probably Wrinkly goes in this one too.
So I like Wrinkly and I like Cranky.
Yes, you like the old timers.
Uh-huh.
Tell me what you like about the old timers.
So Cranky is my favorite Kong.
He would be your number one.
He would be my number one.
Okay.
Especially if we're counting like arcade Donkey Kong in there. Because
I think that's who that is.
You know? Because he has it all. He's the full package then.
Right. He
had the adventure.
Right.
Now he's like the
he is the alpha and the omega.
Yes, exactly. He is the beginning
is the
and
donkey
the end.
and the cranky.
And Wrinkly, I think, is just kind of like nice. Right? She's like the grandma to Cranky's mean grandpa.
She also canonically dies in a way that no other Kong does. She dies
Right.
and then comes back as a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to rank Ghost Wrinkly separately?
I think it's all the same.
It's all the
right?
same.
If we're including past lives and,
Sure.
Cranky Kongs.
Do you think Wrinkly Kong will ever be reincarnated as a new Kong?
I don't know if reincarnated. I wouldn't mind if they did like a Roseanne reboot thing where she's just like back alive again.
Oh, sure. Where it was like, oh no, that's just Donkey Kong spec script for a story about his life.
It was all a dream.
It was all a dream.
Yeah.
That's fine. I love it. In the meantime, we have to find a place where Wrinkly Kong goes. So do you think that she is up in the like A tier?
No, because she's not active enough, and that's the fault of Rare, no fault of her own.
Right.
Uh,
Man, a young Wrinkly Kong game? Let's get that.
yeah, or I mean, like Ms. Donkey Kong. We have a Ms. Pac-Man.
Ms. Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
That's a perfect pitch, Mark.
but so because through no fault of her own, we don't have enough information.
I like the idea that any of these characters have like wills and therefore faults of their own.
We don't have enough information, I feel like, to make a
Right.
real informed decision about how cool Wrinkly Kong is. So I'm vote that we put her in upper mid tier.
Okay. So are we satisfied that Kitty, Candy, and Tiny are the C tier here?
Yes.
Okay. And that no other characters belong in this C tier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now let's move on to the B tier, and we can populate it with the characters that we think go here. And I believe I said already Chunky and Lanky.
Lanky for me is like bottom of this B tier.
Yeah.
His nose really bothers me.
What? It's like a bright nose,
It's
right?
bright red. Like I think it's supposed to evoke a clown. I think he is supposed to evoke
Yes. Because
clowndom.
he also wears oversized clothes, but not in a shopping at Wet Seal kind of way, more in like a I'm a joke way. Also, his arms stretch. He's like Dalsim from Street Fighter 2. We're not meant to take Lanky seriously.
So why make him one of your main protagonists of that game?
He's like a third level. Like,
yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true.
Like
that's true.
That game is about Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong and their friends. Okay. I'm happy putting Lanky Kong next on this ranking. And then so we're saying, this is what we're asserting now, that we like Chunky Kong better than Lanky Kong.
Yes.
I can drink to that. I again think we have to go back in and insert Mankey in here somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be something we come to later.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we'll have to like get all of our heroes in order, and then we can figure out where Mankey goes. So for me, it's easier to put Chunky a little bit higher because, like, is Chunky a body type that I'm attracted to? Yeah, maybe.
Right. Mark likes his guys top heavy. Right?
Skipping leg day.
And he certainly skips leg day.
Yeah. Or
Like-
at least like every other leg day.
Sure. You think he's working out the legs otherwise? He has a small lower body.
He's an upside down triangle.
He is or a triangle.
Yes, of course.
So does that mean that is Wrinkly the last piece of this tier then? Or are there other characters that, because like what do we have left? Maybe Donkey Kong Jr. also belongs in this tier.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings about Donkey Kong Jr. Honestly, I'd kind of put Dixie down here.
You would put Dixie down here?
I'd like at the top of this, but
All right, so she can maybe be a transitional between a B tier and A tier. I'm fine with that.
where are we putting Funky?
Oh, so here's the thing. When I was a kid, I used to think that Funky was stupid. I used to think this is a dumb surfer dude. Like this is a thing that is played out already. We're living in a
Lazy.
yes, a contemporary of Poochie, basically. But now, I think it's like the Candy Kong thing, but with a different aesthetic, and it is very funny to me. Funky Kong is funny to me.
Do you think Funky Kong is funny now because he exists in a post-90s world?
Yes.
as
I
a
do.
throwback to that sort of like blue raspberry radicalness.
Yeah, he is Code Red Mountain Dew personified, right? Or monk ape personified. He is the monkey embodiment of Mountain Dew Code Red, is what I was trying to get at. How do you feel about Funky?
Yeah, I'm on board with all of this. I think Swanky is funny as a idea, but he doesn't have as much personality.
That is true. If we are just adding to our list right now and we were to put Swanky in there, is he too high? Should Swanky go between Chunky and Lanky?
Is Lanky below Chunky?
Yes.
No, I think he should go above Chunky, but no higher.
No.
But I think he should go above Chunky again because I think the idea is funny. Like, he's wearing a suit.
He's hosting an in-game game show.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And if there was like a mini game collection that's like Swanky's mini games, like I'm there, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could be a new WarioWare, and I would be on board. I'm there. Okay, so I'm adding him to the list here.
Yeah, so I feel good about having Swanky kind of like almost directly in the middle at this point.
So if we are still filling out the B tier here, I think what we are left with is Junior, Wrinkly, and Dixie at the top of the B tier, / maybe as a transition to A tier.
And I would put it in that order.
So what did I say?
Junior,
Wrinkly,
Dixie.
Okay, I can do that. Tell me why you think that order.
Well, so I don't really have any love for Junior as his own thing. I never really played like the arcade game or anything like that. Wrinkly again is I think a interesting, if possibly underutilized character, and it is because she is underutilized that she can't go any higher.
Sure.
Right? My fondness can only go so far.
Right, but I mean, we have to recognize that the only reason that we know or have any affinity for these characters is that they are being used in games. So I don't know what other criteria we're using. Like, I do like Donkey Kong Jr., and it pains me a little bit to see him like not in our A tier.
Well, I'm willing to hear the argument.
No, but I think it's fair because, well, he has a legendary position in Super Mario Kart. That is legendary. There are only 8 characters in the original Mario Kart, and that game invented a genre, right? Kart racer wasn't a thing before, but he hasn't been well utilized since. He'll be like a background character in the stands of like Mario Sluggers or whatever, and that's not enough. You need to have an active role in this community, Donkey Kong Jr. You're disappearing. No one knows what's happening with you. No one even knows what generation you're part of. You're messing up the whole family tree.
I think it is because he is a confusing character to put in there. When you have a Diddy,
and you already have a like possibly son of the original Donkey Kong, it's like, who are you? What are you? What's your deal? We think we know, or we think we have ideas, but we don't know.
We don't really know.
No one really knows. And then Dixie, what do we got for and against Dixie? I like the way Dixie controls in the games that she's in, Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country 2. Her like hair twirly thing is a cool mechanic. Is nice to like platform with a little bit more ease. You can calm down and explore a little bit, get some accurate jumps in there. And like her just like spinning around hair attack. That all works for me. I know I just said hair like 3 times in terms of like good things about the character, but it freaks me out that she has hair.
This is exactly what I was going to say. I worry perhaps that too many of my decisions are being driven by aesthetic decisions made by the developers. But
these are the only aesthetic decisions.
These are the only decisions. I know.
Right.
She doesn't have agency.
That's right.
But I'm vividly remembering the opening of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and it's a high definition cutscene, showing in shocking detail,
horrifying detail, some would say,
Dixie's blonde hair coming out of her head, and it's scarring.
She's also dressed like she's from 1986, right? With like the pink. Is she wearing a beret?
Is it a beret or a beanie?
I don't think it's a beanie. We may never know. It
Oh yeah, I
Let-
think you're right. It is some sort of like
beret and like a pink vest or something.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this: is it possible that she's wearing a wig?
Only if we are also thinking that the other female characters are wearing wigs.
Because the female characters. Oh, actually, this isn't true. I was about to say the female characters are the only Kongs that have hair, but Swanky has hair, right? He's got like curly, like kind of used car salesman hair. I think we need to
Yes, yeah.
or maybe it's just like the fur on the top of his head is styled or something.
That could also be. It's very long.
Yes.
Like he can like perm it basically.
I would pay to see that. Swanky Kong with a perm. So I just don't know. I don't know what to make of monkeys with long blonde hair. I don't know what to do with it.
I don't either, and I do feel it's a little unfair that is affecting our ranking because otherwise she's a great character.
Yeah. Although
Like gameplay wise,
for sure.
I'd rather play as her than Diddy.
Yeah.
I think she's more useful.
I'm putting them up next to each other in my head, Diddy and Dixie. And like in Donkey Kong Country 2, they both have these like painfully stupid like ending level celebration dances. He gets out a boombox and is like jamming out to it, and she whips out an electric guitar. I think hers is cooler than his.
Yeah, it requires more skill.
Sure. She can shred on an axe. She's cool. All right. I'm happy with Dixie where she is.
I mean, you kind of convinced me to put Diddy below Dixie.
Oh, you think possibly? So now I do think that we are talking A tier at this point.
Yeah.
With
She straddles the line between both.
right,
Her
but
Diddy as well.
I think at that point that just makes them A tier.
Okay.
If we have two
B
people,
tier, A tier, sure.
I just think it's all A tier, Mark. So you think Dixie greater than Diddy?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Diddy Kong. He's been in a lot of games.
Yes, but I don't think that necessarily makes him better.
I agree. He's got the
He's just
peanut
more
guns.
well-known.
Yeah, he is more well known. I just feel like there's a lot of established stuff about him that like makes him specific. Like peanut guns, coconut jetpack or like barrel jetpack.
Let me throw this into the mix.
Please.
Now that like we're just like tossing ideas out there.
Yeah, now that that's happening.
Donkey
Mm-hmm.
below Diddy,
Okay.
and then Dixie wherever we determine she goes.
So you think the Donkey Kong of Donkey Kong Country is less good than Diddy?
I have more fun playing as Diddy.
So I think that is correct. That the Kong that you want to play as in the original Donkey Kong Country is always Diddy. Just always Diddy.
What is a benefit of playing as Donkey?
He's got that like move where he can like slap the ground.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And I think there are some of those big muscly guys that like he can roll through that Diddy can't cartwheel
Yeah,
through.
that is true.
But I mean, yeah, when push comes to shove, I prefer Diddy to Donkey.
Yeah, the speed and grace of Diddy.
So then are we saying that the two of them below Dixie? This
is where things get twisted.
This is surprising.
Yeah.
I like are we representing our own desires here? Are we representing some like invisible hand of the market? What has positioned Dixie Kong, who we were saying maybe straddles the line between B and A tier characters, to possibly second on our list? What is happening here, Mark?
I don't know, but I kind of am moving in that direction.
All right. I'm gonna tentatively do this. That Dixie Kong, I think, is at number 2. I think we haven't reviewed the list in a second here, and Then Diddy is after her, and Donkey after that. It should be noted we have yet to slot in Funky Kong. We've only talked about do we like him or do we not like him.
Oh, and you're really high on Funky.
I'm high on Funky.
Where would you put Funky in this list at the moment?
Boy, this is hard. This is Mark.
But like
this is hard.
But don't worry about like anybody's reaction to it. Don't worry what like my face is going to say once you tell me. Like, go with your heart. I really want to know where you would put him. No pressure for anybody else.
Is it weird if I say I like him better than Dixie?
No, that's what I want. I want that honesty.
Okay, I like Funky Kong. I'm super excited that we're gonna get to play as this character in Tropical Freeze.
So then, are you saying that Funky Kong is better than Dixie and Donkey?
I think he's A tier, man. Yeah.
You think Funky is A tier?
I think Funky is A tier.
So my one hesitation with this is that I feel like we haven't seen enough of him.
Sure, hasn't been a playable character. Like he is a playable character in Mario Kart Wii. He is a playable character in that, but otherwise not yet.
Yeah, it's like platforming prowess, unknown.
Yeah, we don't know. Although we can expect that he's going to be surfing through everything like a cool dude and like throwing up like the what is this thing that I'm doing right now? The like
hang loose.
The like hang 10 kind of hand motion.
Here's where like I'm feeling all sorts of emotions.
I want to
because
feel
I'm
him too
fine
much.
with Funky above Dixie,
right? But it doesn't seem like he should be number 2 on our list,
right?
Okay, so do we need to reevaluate? You know what? Dixie Kong is cool. I don't know that Diddy is less cool than Dixie.
Okay,
so I may revise to go Diddy, then Dixie, then Funky, then Donkey Kong.
Wait, Funky below Dixie?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I know I said that I prefer Funky to Dixie.
But in a definitive ranking.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a definitive, all things being definitive, we have to go with what we think makes sense, not just, we must see our emotions, we must acknowledge them. We say, emotions, you are valid. We have to make other decisions.
That's very healthy. I like this. I feel good about this.
Okay, so I am now taking Diddy Kong, and I am moving him above Dixie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then slotting Funky in under Dixie Kong. Now, I think we have already landed on our number 1, Cranky Kong / the original Donkey Kong. I'm going to put that in here.
Yeah, I feel really good about that one.
I think it is the only answer. And I would be interested to see if anyone else has a different only answer. Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. I mean, this is going to be a definitive list. We have not locked it down yet.
No.
So nothing has been defined
yet.
Mankey
Mankey has not been placed.
That's right. Mankey has not been placed. So let me read the list bottom to top.
Yeah.
And we can kind of suss out where we think Mankey Kong goes. And why it matters. Bottom of the list, Tiny Kong. Actually, how many of these do we have? I want to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 13. Number 13, Tiny Kong. Number 12, Candy Kong. 11, Kitty Kong. 10, Lanky. 9, Chunky Kong. 8, Swanky Kong. 7, Donkey Kong Jr. 6, Wrinkly Kong. 5, Donkey Kong. 4, Funky Kong. 3, Dixie Kong. 2, Diddy Kong. 1, Cranky Kong.
I feel pretty solid.
I feel like that's a pretty good list. We gotta put Mankey in here somewhere, and I think it goes between Swanky Kong and Donkey Kong Jr.
Oh wow.
Where are you thinking?
I was thinking lower than that.
Lower?
So
okay.
Well, when we were reading this list, the one thing that
what jumps out
I was
to you
questioning.
here,
The one thing I was questioning was like, are we putting Candy too low? And the reason I ask this is because is she a victim of a lack of agency? Or is she like choosing how she's presenting herself?
Okay, that is interesting. I think this goes back to the wig question I posed earlier. If we are to assume that the monkeys are putting on wigs, I mean, what? They're obviously affecting a bunch of different looks, right? Like, these are choices that they must be making. You don't have to wear clothes if you're a monkey, but you can, like, put on a sexy bathing suit, and that's funny.
I'm not saying there's a right answer. I'm just posing the question.
How much further up the list would you think Candy Kong should go?
I wouldn't. I would put Mankey underneath her.
Interesting. So Tiny's still very bottom.
Yeah.
Because
what a mess.
What a mess. What a mess. Yeah, I can drink to that. I'm adding Mankey Kong.
So that way we're not really promoting candy. We're just
Right, we're just slotting. Now, you said that you found the villain, or the villainous aspect of Mankey Kong interesting. You're
but it's so thin beyond that.
right. Also,
Mankey as a character and even in his design is not very interesting.
No, he's like just your basic monkey.
It's not really telling the story.
Right. And there are many of them.
Yeah.
There are Mankey's Kong.
They are minion.
Right. They are in fact minion. Mark, here's our ranking. Should I start at the top?
Yes.
Number 1, Cranky Kong / the original Donkey Kong. Number 2, Diddy Kong. Number 3, Dixie Kong. Number 4, Funky Kong. Number 5, Donkey Kong. I feel like that's the A tier right there. Those 5. Next, B tier. Wrinkly Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Swanky Kong, Chunky Kong, Lanky Kong. Those are B tier, yes?
Yeah.
Then rounding out the C tier, Kitty Kong, Candy Kong, Mankey Kong, Tiny Kong. Those are some bad Kongs at the bottom.
Just dirt.
Just real awful Kongs. Normally when we make these lists, I'm like, man, there's so much good. And then like some other stuff that like are still pretty good. I think there's some genuinely bad Kong.
Yeah. Some mistakes.
Yes. Some abominations, maybe. Look, if they are making the choice in wearing wigs, then it's different. But I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see them pick out a wig and put it on and be like, this is the look I'm going with today. My name is Dixie Kong. I buy my clothes from the Gap. Would she buy them from the Gap? Hot Topic, maybe.
Hot Topic.
There we go. Where'd she buy her guitar? The Guitar Center on Sunset.
Yeah.
All right. If you have a version of this list, or if you think we are way out of line with one of our rankings here, please email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. I think we might get. I think there are some Dixie purists that will want to see her at number 1.
Number 1. That's crazy.
I agree, but I think there are some purists that want to see it. Yeah. So anyway, this is definitive, so you don't get that. But please write into us. It's always fun to disagree. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Thank you so much for listening to us rank the Kongs. Mark, do you feel good about that list?
Yeah, I think that was really solid.
Yeah, I don't know how you could refute it. But again, if you do, go ahead and email us. Or you can tweet at us. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell. And collectively, we are at NinCart Society. Please rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out tremendously. If we get to 50 reviews, we may, in fact, have a chance to go to E3 and rank the Kongs there. Maybe there'll be some new Kongs announced at E3.
That'd be exciting.
Yeah, and then we'd have to redo the whole episode, I think, right then and there. Anyway, do that. It helps us out quite a bit. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, we write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can find more of 8-Bit Betty's music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers putting on a blonde wig and going out to find bananas or something. Thanks for listening. All right, and then here are those missing minutes from Tuesday's episode, as promised.
2 new costumes came to Super Mario Odyssey on Thursday, March 29th. The costumes are a Satellaview astronaut costume based on the Japan-only peripheral for the Super Famicom, and the second is a baseball uniform.
Have you seen these costumes? Mark?
Yeah.
The Satellaview costume is so cute and so janky. Like, it looks like Mario's making an astronaut costume where he's like, I'm gonna go into space. He looks so cute.
Cool little side note, March 29th was opening day for Major League Baseball here in the States, so the baseball costume was likely a nod to that. I also just think Nintendo has sneakily become very good at constantly updating titles with new content to keep gamers engaged with their first-party titles.
Sure. Well, they've been adding stuff, but it's not always like substantive. They added 2 costumes to this game.
Right, but I mean, that might be enough for a completionist or
Sure.
somebody who's like, I'm done with this game.
You hear that? Everyone who put Mario Odyssey down, there are 2 costumes you don't have
just
yet.
to like come back,
Get back in
and
there.
even if it doesn't take them very long to get them, that's a game. That's 2 new costumes that they can get and then not sell their physical copy of
I see what
Odyssey
you're saying,
back to GameStop. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of talk in the video game industry about this idea of like live titles and games that are released once, but then players continue to play and engage with for, like years,
Right.
instead of a first party title where you run through it in 10 to 15 hours and then you just put it away because you've seen everything there is to see.
Right.
And even though Nintendo hasn't like made a big deal about it, it seems like they are
Sort
like
of
working
doing
to
that.
do that as well.
I mean, especially in the form of ARMS and Splatoon, these are games that are like literally doing it and explicitly doing it. And then, I was just mentioning that I hopped back into Kirby because there were new Dream Friends for me to play with. Could I have turned around and sold that game back to GameStop? Sure. Might I still do that? Maybe
eventually.
But if in like a month they're like, by the way, more Dream Friends coming down the pipe, I'll hang on to it for a little bit longer. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be something big. Just knowing that there is something more to do, something more to see, and an experience you already enjoyed always feels good.
Finally, Snake Pass on Switch released a new update that reverts the game's icon back to something closer to the original icon. There's a lot of brouhaha around that, and adds a new arcade mode.
Okay.
I feel obligated to report on Snake Pass, 1, because it's a fine game that we both enjoyed
Right.
enough, and 2, it did so much to get us through the early thin release period of Switch.
Absolutely. It felt like a full game, right?
And it was
It is
like
a full game.
It was like a multi-platform release.
Yes.
Right? It was on Xbox One, PS4, and Switch all at the same time, running Unreal Engine 4, and that felt kind of still feels like momentous for a Nintendo console to be treated that way.
Also, what a interesting, unique game, right? Like, there's no other game that I can think of that plays like that and that like feels as like tangible and physical as Snake Pass. It's a cool man. Should I hop back into Snake Pass? Or should I hop back into Snake Pass?
I don't know. It's that little bit of content that you're like,
little
ooh, you
bit.
want to see that new icon, but in order to do that,
see that new icon.
You've got to download it again. You've got to update the title in order to get the reward of that new icon. Oh, wait. That's not my real finally.
Oh.
I have an additional, like a real finally. Is that in an interview with Polygon discussing the Super Smash Bros. Switch and Splatoon 2 tournaments at E3, Bill Trinan, Nintendo's Bill Trinan, nobody else's, said that there are, quote, many announcements to come regarding Nintendo's E3 programming, and some sites are breathlessly running this as like some sort of breaking news item, and it's the perfect opportunity for us to revive our classic segment.
This is not news?
Not news. This is not news.
Because, of course, Nintendo is going to have more announcements regarding their programming at E3.
This slots in very nicely next to, I think, our previous not news segment, which was like Nintendo developing more Switch games. That got so much ink, so much virtual ink.
So much virtual ink. And look, you may ask, why are we then reporting on this not news in the news?
As a public service announcement.
That's right. It's just like another piece of not news that we refuse to discuss about Luigi, and we still refuse to discuss it.
That's right.
Also, do we have any updates on whether or not Billy Mitchell is a cheater when it comes to what was it, Galaga or something?
No, it was Donkey Kong.
Was it Donkey? Well, I know that Donkey Kong was a game that he played. I don't know if I don't remember.
The
if that
cheating was
yes.
about Donkey Kong, I believe. There was another person who happened to be a witness to his potential Donkey Kong cheat who also allegedly cheated on Galaga.
Look, we got a lot of cheaters in the world. We don't know what's real and what's
but no
not.
update. As
No
far
update.
no update.
No updates.
No.
All right, Mark, let's close out the news. And that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe, all that good stuff on Apple Podcasts. If we get to 50, we will pester the people at E3 and say, look how many people think we should be here talking E3 at them.
And if we get into E3, you can be sure we're going to be walking around just like being like, not news.
Yeah,
just
this
pointing
isn't
at me,
news.
Not news.
This isn't news.
We're going to be handing out those like awards.
Yes, that's right.
Like
We will-
IGN does
we
for
will
best
have-
game of
that's
E3.
right. But it'll just be a not news. We'll go to the Guacamelee 2 thing and be like, we already know about you, Guacamelee 2. Unless you're coming to Switch, then that would be news.
Campfire.